rails on my 2019 Honda Odyssey. There are lots of great videos out there showing people how to put roof rails on the Honda Odyssey, but I didn't find any specific to the 2019 and figured a few things out along the way that I wanted to share with you. I'm putting roof rails on my car so that we can take our surfboards to the beach. Comment below and tell me what you're going to do with your roof rails. Alright, so I ordered my roof rails from HondaPartsOverstock.com. I got a really good deal there, and their link is posted below. Also, you're only seeing half of what arrived in the box because I've already installed one of the roof rails, but something to notice is that each of these parts is labeled RH or LH for right or left side. Also, you have this parts bag here. Make sure in your parts bag that you have a little blue clip like that and one of these black clips, actually two of each. Otherwise, you're going to need to salvage them when you remove your trim. Also, I printed up some instructions. A link to that PDF is also posted below. Alright, tools you're going to need to complete this job: Phillips head screwdriver, putty knife, needle nose pliers, masking tape or blue tape as I used. That's my torque wrench, and T15 and T30 torque bits. A tape measure, if you have one that measures in metric system, that'd be great. And I liked using my fabric tape measure for the trim. It made it a little easier. They call for a felt tip pen. I found a pencil helpful on the trim, it showed up better. Metal file, and then you're going to need a tool to cut the trim. They call for an air saw. I used my quarter cable grinder / cutoff tool. Don't forget your safety glasses with those. And they call for a plastic trim tool, which I didn't have, so I used this cute little pry bar here and my flathead screwdriver. But if you're using metal tools to remove that, make sure that you put some cardboard down when you're trying to get leverage so you don't ruin your paint job. Alright, so the first thing you're going to do is measure and mark your trim, and you do this so that after you cut your trim, it'll be easier to figure out where to put it back. When you're measuring, measure from the front of the vehicle, and you notice that there's two cracks in the trim. Measure from the front crack back to 1100 millimeters as indicated. Place your tape and then mark your tape. And that's so that, again, after you cut your trim and place it back, those two lines will match up. You're going to do the same thing from the back, measuring from the back of the vehicle forward 700 millimeters. Place your tape and mark it. Alright, so the next thing you're going to do is remove the trim from the vehicle, and you can do that using your plastic trim tool, or if you don't have a plastic trim tool like me, you can use some metal tools, but again, make sure that you're really careful and you don't ruin your paint job. Alright, a lot of this you can pull up by hand, but when you get to a point of resistance, that's where the little clips are underneath. So that's where you need to pry the trim up using your plastic trim tool or your metal tools. Once you get the trim removed, you'll need to detach it from the trim that goes around the windshield. And you're going to do that by pulling up on the trim that goes around the windshield and pushing down on the roof trim. After you've removed the trim, you need to take off any of the remaining clips, and you do that with your needle nose pliers. Again, it's okay if they break off as long as you have an extra pair that came in your box. or some sort of scraper. If any of your sealant is covering the bolts there, you need to scrape that off, but I didn't have that problem. After you remove the trim, you're going to measure and mark it as indicated in the instructions. After you've measured your trim, double check your work by placing it back on your car and make sure that the bolts fall between your markings. After you make your cuts, file your cut ends with a metal file to remove any burrs. Now you're going to install the roof molding cover clip on the front of the trim, front end of the trim, and it snaps into place just like that. Now you're going to install this clip into the very end piece of trim by sliding it into the grooves like that. And then you're going to install this spacer. You'll notice that the spacer and the trim are slightly angled up so that they fit in one direction. Like that. So now you're going to reinstall your trim. You have a little trim attachment piece, and that's going to lay down over that bolt there. And just give a little pressure, put it back into place, and then you can slide your molding your trim into place. Line up your others. And in front, to reinstall, here's the other little trim attachment piece. That's going to go on that bolt. And just like when we uninstalled it, the windshield trim comes up and the trim goes underneath of it. And then just apply a little pressure and it snaps into place. Now you're going to install your right center stay over the bolts and secure them with the torque nuts using your T30 torque bit. After you tighten it down, you're going to want to use your torque wrench to make sure you apply the correct pressure. Alright, finally you're going to install the roof rail by putting it inside the center stay and over the bolts. You're going to secure it using your Torx nuts and your T30 torque bit, along with the screw and your T15 torque bit. Alright, finally you're going to install the cover by slipping that little notch under there, putting it in place, snap it down, and then use your screw and your T15 bit to screw it in. After that, I'm going to install the roof rails and then surf's up.